Yeah, how you doing? They can't, the server's down at the town hall, so they.
You can sit right there.
Okay, well,
They're having problems.
that's one change of order of things.
No.
I guess
You're gonna have to, I know it's difficult, Alan, but you're gonna have to sit on that side.
we call it the left.
I don't know if this is gonna affect my right brain and left brain thinking though.
It's oriented everything.
I know.
It's a different place, I understand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got a forum. Is anybody on the Zoom thing?
What, will you come look at this? How do I? This is not what it usually looks like. It usually shows the.
What about share screen? Somebody's online. Oh, you. Richard DeBose.
Nope,
Meet up with that 25.
it's not it.
We actually meet this week, so. Lisa's supposed to be not doing that now.
Oh, is this? There we are.
Anybody on?
Richard.
Richard?
Mhm.
Hey, Richard.
Hey, Bill.
How are you this morning?
I'm just peachy. How about yourself?
It's hard to hear you.
Name Orion.
I said I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Wet and cold. It's supposed to be almost summer. Well, we've got a forum. Why don't we go ahead and start? I don't know if
Oh, but how do I?
David is coming. Bill Roberts. But let's
Oh,
get
my
started. Would
goodness.
someone like to move the? Let's have a moment of silence first. Would you, anyone like to move the adoption of the agenda? I'd like to take up the parking and signage first. And hopefully get that done. With that, I would someone like to move the adoption. Well, second. Is that discussion, all in favor, say
I
aye.
have a discussion. I have prepared a little something for the new business.
Right.
And I wanted to get that to people today.
Right.
So they look at it, assuming we won't get to it today.
Yeah, I'm going, sorry.
But I didn't want
Uh-oh.
to, whatever, to
Okay.
explain what is on here.
Yeah, this relates to,
See, if you want to table, I'll just leave it in and have a, right?
I mean, to the drainage. Hello, William. Okay, are you ready to vote on the adoption of the agenda as amended? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Is there a motion to approve the May 26th meeting minutes? One for certain
Minor correction.
one correction, okay?
It says 10:30 p.m.
Oh, goodness. I was way off, wasn't I?
You don't remember that? Okay, by common consent, that's amended. Any further discussions or corrections or anything? All in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is so approved.
It was p.m. when you left.
Well, let's take up the parking first, and I think we can, hopefully, we've been through this so many times now that we can wrap it up. I've got, 8 years that circulated, and I hope that you all will have that. Unfortunately, the town printer is down in the server, so we can't make copies. y'all this morning. Does everyone have it?
My printer's all sit down.
I can pull it up on this if it helps, but it's probably kind of hard to see.
This one's just down here.
Okay. Great.
Okay, so then let's start on page 1. Just we'll go through page by page. Any additional changes? This, which one you have? Parking. Okay, let me pull this up. Okay. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, page 1.
I've reviewed it and I thought in general this is great, but I had one question that kind of ties into page 1 and on forward. So 6 residential areas for single and multifamily use, dormitories, apartments, collectively the usages. Then we use
But where are you now? So
900,
Under general.
yes.
you're in general?
We're on page 1.
The first section.
Okay.
And then the last line on the first page, changes in use or occupancy classification. It goes back to something we've kind of struggled with and talked about repeatedly. And the example that's coming to my mind is if, for instance, my house could park 2-3 cars in my driveway, if all of a sudden it becomes a vacation rental or Airbnb and I put 14 bunk beds in it, and it's got a bus and 3 cars, all of a sudden my house becomes a parking problem. And I know we've talked about, do we classify something as a vacation rental or not? And this comes up as an example as it pertains to parking.
Well, let me suggest that would violate it. But this is explanatory now. And again, would that be prohibited anywhere else in the code? I mean, it's required that you have the parking spaces. I guess there's no prohibition on the number of cars in the spaces.
I mean, it's very hard to define, and I don't come with an answer on how to solve it, but I up as all of a sudden your neighbor somewhat, in a way, changes use or occupancy classification, and in doing so creates a parking problem for your house and the neighbors and everyone else.
Well, the same could be true of a party.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think parties are permitted because it's a random event and it's sporadic. But again, I don't have an actual solution, but I'll bring it up.
And I would second that that's there. I don't know if it necessarily can be defined because that would be circumstantial. I mean, in this piece of the definitions, but maybe in the enforcement, it does need to be something that is spelled out so that there is some recall. I remember going up on North Carolina Terrace, and they had one of the bigger houses was having like a sorority house coming for the entire weekend. And that place was just crazy with cars and everything else, parking all over the place. And it's like, well, you know, it might have been even for a whole week. I can't remember. I remember going by several times, and it was, pretty chaotic.
It seems like those, as you said, those are enforcement issues.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking too, that there might be something in that portion of bylaws here for Montreat that might have more to do with that. All we can really do is, as far as zoning, is probably define what the footprint needs to be for parking based upon size and occupancy.
What about going in a direction like number of complaints, meaning if there is a parking issue, you can present to the town that there is a parking issue, and after a certain number of complaints, it has to be addressed or something. That
I think you could bring that up. I don't think that goes into the zoning code.
okay?
I think that's an enforcement as a related issue, I got a note from John Hinkle that I was going to take up today. This sort of touches on the same thing. And it says, somewhere I got it, I thought I had to do this. At the last meeting, PNC, I read one of the agenda items would be parking. I couldn't stay, but I noticed, I want to bring something to the attention of the PNC. Previous Saturday morning at 10:30 in the morning, I was on Graybeard across from the Walt Jones Sanctuary taking water samples from Black Creek. In order to get to Graybeard Trail, we had passed 48 cars parked on both sides of the road. I made a comment to one of our party that they said this was small compared to some Saturdays. There was no way emergency vehicle would act. So I think that what we can do, Adrian, I'm going to ask you if you will bring that up with Dave and see how he would advise us on enforcement. Because I think that really is an enforcement issue, not a zoning issue. You, is that okay?
That makes sense.
You know, Adrian, and still, I'm going to write it down, but when you write it down, because I'm not old age, I'll forget.
Sure.
I just remember to bring it up.
I have one other point on that. I don't remember that in anywhere do we even address parking near trailheads. And Montreat has gotten, I'd say probably, 500% more popular for use of its trails just in the time I've been here in the last 5 years. And you have a tendency for people, even though they're not supposed to be using bikes on the trails, they'll sneak on up there and go across the lower Pine Trail and stuff with a series of bikes. When you get that many people coming and going here, it's something that we may need to maybe add, maybe not at this time, but we need to plan for some of these trailhead access parking areas too, because it really will tie up a road very easily the way, especially if you're talking Graybeard, but even other ones that go on up to Stomping Knob. Look out, absolutely, and then also going up further, not just Stomping Knob, but the lower
Yeah, those are all enforcement things that we might want to ask Dave to come in and really talk about.
And Dave and Alex and I have already had discussions about this, so there is, we are thinking about.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking from a longer term planning, as we look at, the Non-Retreat Association, the community of Montreat, and the college as well. But these are things that also need to be factored in, because it is an element that has changed. We've become a much more open community, at least as far as opening our trails to the folks coming and going. That does get to be an issue.
Well, let's treat that as an enforcement issue for now.
Okay,
because
absolutely.
Our task is zoning, and we can't get into every problem that comes up. That's where that would seem to be a policing issue.
Exactly. So, okay.
So let's see if we can get through the ordinance revisions this morning. Welcome, Stuart. Okay, anything else on page 1? I'm not meaning to cut you off. I just want to see if we can get something finished. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4.
I'm not sure my numbers are the same as yours, but 902, or your 902 is on 34.
I'm just noticing my pages are.
That's all. Just parking space.
What section?
902.
I've got some 902 too. You go ahead.
Okay, Dan.
902, capital A, we've changed around a little bit, but the caption for my notes, what I suggested last meeting should be, and they got all in there, it's just, I don't have them put it on the computer. It should say single, comma, 2-family, comma, and multifamily residential. That's the caption. So that's capital A.
Without objection, Adrian, you got that?
Yeah, and I think I made those changes, but I'll
I
double
think
check it.
You got the changes, you just added the multi-family, and the wording was kind of swirling.
Okay.
This is a single, 2-family, and multi-family residential.
Dwellings. Okay, any, by common consent, that's done.
And then 902. Oh, and then 902A and B in the section, we refer to dwelling units 1 or 2 times. And I think that should be capitalized.
Right.
In 2 places, in the 902A and the 902B. dwelling unit,
Yeah. I see
one time
that.
at each place.
You got that, Adrian?
Mhm.
Okay.
Dwelling unit.
By
I think it's one place at each section.
comments consent, I've looked at it. Yeah. Okay, anything else?
That's all I have.
That's
all I have.
Okay, Mason?
I've got in 902B dormitories. I thought we were gonna delete the sentence, one long-term and two short-term bicycle parking spaces for the party. So,
We were, and I caught one of them, but I didn't.
and the next one is in C, other occupancy uses, which I think should be relettered E. The second sentence should be deleted.
Yeah,
The second sentence.
it starts one compact car spaces and parking.
I gotcha.
And the third sentence, which one long-term and two short-term rental parking. Yeah, bicycle.
Sorry, we missed that. Got that, Adrian?
Yes.
Okay, by common consent. Anything else? On that page. Okay, continue on to the next page, 904 is on the next page. Following that page, 905, 906. And then the last page is just
Only I can make one comment. I have nothing more than the parking ordinance. I do, and I've just been thinking about it this morning in my head. We may want to make reference in the PUD new section of the ordinance that we had to allow the PUD to alter parking requirements with a study as part of the whole PUD design.
I think that's in there.
It doesn't say parking as I read it. Stuart, you look at it though. I just looked at it this morning. I think it ought to be included, but I think we ought to. But I just raised that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Everybody agree? Stuart, are you making a note of that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say there's some language
Right.
there,
What my quick review this morning, what clearly was clear, so I just want to make sure we make this one. And there were some defined terms in the zoning ordinance that we're going to need to capitalize. We started capitalizing defined terms after we did that.
Sorry. Okay. With these changes this morning, can we further put to bed the parking and loading regulations, Article 9? So that what I'm envisioning would do is we're going to start consolidating all this in one document.
Right.
Mason, would you like to make the motion?
I'll move approval of this ordinance.
Wait, would you like to second that? Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? It passes. Okay, thank you. And again, I'm not trying to push you beyond getting things done. We're now going to take up signage. And Mason has got some comments, as does Dan, that I know about. I have also got some language that I've pulled together. Mason, did you catch yours down?
No, I just gave it to you and Adrian. I like your language better. We were both looking at the same issue.
Yeah. I'm going to pass these out and once we get to it. I didn't get one.
I'll just tell you, I'll say safety steps.
So we'll take those up when we get there, but I would like to discuss more generally before we get to it. Richard, I can't find in the sign ordinance where the MRA sign at the gate is permitted, so you'll have to take it down this afternoon.
Already on it, Bill.
All right, so I've asked Adrian to determine where that would be, but we may need to come back and add certain specificity, what that's permitted. And y'all just recall that. And with that, I'd like to ask Mason, what we've got. And Dan, jump in if I skip you, because I don't have yours here.
You want me to?
Yeah. The first one is 601. A lot of Masons are in the nature of grammatical, like these are copying. Suppose we just assume that, or capitalize. Suppose we skip those and we just make those.
You say 601, you say
We're
601.
on, I thought we were on,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sign is out.
I got skipped over. Right, okay. Sign. Okay. All right, I'm sorry to be so confused. Article 10. The first page is 101 and 10 down to 101.3. Any comments? The next page starts with 101.4 through part of 101.9. Any questions? Next is 101.92 through 101.95. 101.102. Any changes? The next one is the top of the page is 102.10.
I have one hit.
Okay.
Beginning of the third line of 1003.1 wayfaring, it should be a small W.
Okay.
I don't think we define wayfaring signs.
Bill on 1002 prohibited signs. Again, might be an enforcement issue, but I want to bring it up. It doesn't mention anything. I guess the only word I can come up with is offensive.
Give me an example.
If someone was disgruntled with the town and they stick a sign in the yard that is offensive or something of that nature, how does the town? We have prohibited signs, we have exempt signs, we have signs with permits. We do not, it doesn't spell out things such as, the way I'm reading it, I can put sports team signs in my yard, I can put political signs in my yard, I can put various things in my yard, and I can put an offensive sign in my yard. And if I put an offensive sign, how is that enforced?
What is defined as offensive?
Yeah, it would be litigated by the town.
Yeah, that's
You could put a sports sign in your yard, you
right.
put a political sign in your yard, you put something up. Offensive, it means different things to different people.
Right.
There was, I was telling Adrian, there was a thing that, it's been recently, I guess it's resolved, but it kind of carried, because they always got fun stuff going on. Somebody got crossways with the town. They did just what you said, I don't know, I forget the language, but it was, bad now. They went back and forth a couple of years. I don't know exactly how it got resolved. I think both
So that we can put in here to stop that scenario.
Okay. Bill, kind of left-handed answer to your question though is 102.11 says any sign not expressly permitted is prohibited. So whereas there's express provision allowing an offensive sign, it is prohibited.
Right.
But
It puts them in a tough
It
spot.
does.
I wrote vague on that line just because what do they decide to enforce? And I was thinking something of
Specific line.
on inappropriate or something like that would give them some teeth. But
yeah,
it's
there's a
not
line,
big deal.
where prohibited comes up against free speech, so.
Yeah, I'm a,
I would suggest you can't even define what the word obscene means. 'Cause it's one thing to you and one thing to
Well,
me.
what was that famous case? I know if I see it.
Judge Black, that was pornography.
Yeah.
That's right. So
all right, I just want to bring it up. I'm good.
I don't know. Anything else on 102? Discussion note on 103.1, Wayfaring. 104. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
This is very picky, 105.
105.
Yes.
Okay.
There yet, I'm not sure.
Yeah, let's get over there for that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you said.
104.6,
Oh, I see.
0.7, 0.8, 0.9. 105.
This is just a technical matter, so 105, and you drop down to 105.1, you go 105.11, 0.12, et cetera. 0.11, 0.12, 0.13 are not aligned.
You're right.
It should be split.
Those are not subcategories.
All that stuff happens when we.
Yeah, we're not, it's a mess right now. We know.
Same thing for 105.2. So,
Yeah.
do 1.2.
That should be 2.0.
Indented to be indented over.
Okay.
So they should just be, 2.1 and 2.2 should be indented.
If it's appropriate to mention, so I would move that on matters of which words are capitalized and not capitalized, and format and so forth, that we've got such a competent group, professional as well as board, that if there's any minor thing like that, it doesn't affect the communication of the ordinance. That we authorize Adrian and Stuart and so forth to make those corrections without us having to go through.
Let's do that on the final run through. Because we got some that may feel.
I hear what you're saying. Wade, I guess I'm just trying to make sure they're aware of it.
Yeah.
So if you have 2.22s, for example, I don't know if they've catch that.
Yeah.
Or not.
You see that, Adrian?
Yeah, I know this is a mess. It's the formatting was
No.
tricky yesterday, so I already knew it was messed up.
Yeah, on 1005.25.
Okay.
At the end of the first sentence, educational signs is not a defined term. Therefore, those should be capitalized. The last line. Even pedestal mountain, in the last draft I saw, it was hyphenated, but in the draft I got in the email, there was no space between them at all.
I'm sorry, where are you?
The last line of 1005.25, pedestal mountain. Well, first, in the first sentence, educational signs should not be capitalized.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay, the last sentence, pedestal mounted, should be, I think, hyphenated or at least a space between them. In the draft that was sent to me, there was no space.
Okay.
Okay. Noted.
I have also a comment regarding 1005.3.
Okay.
Where we provide that these temporary signs may be permitted in the location of such sign approved by the zoning administrator. We may want to consider also the zoning administrator approving, I'm not sure, do we want to consider the zoning administrator also approving the duration which the sign may be up? It's a temporary sign.
I don't, yeah, I did that with the college edition. I think that's a good idea.
I think it's appropriate to do that.
So,
We don't want a 3-month temporary sign. It seems to me that
Location and duration.
so like you put after your location in the fourth line, location in duration. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? I've got a change here.
This brings up your 1005.5.
We got one, that's up to 3. Okay. Just to clarify with particularity the welcome sign
Yeah.
that I think you brought up. We want to add a sentence at the end of 105.3. It says an example of a sign permitted here is the welcome sign owned by Montreat College, approximately 23 by 70 above the wall. The Howard building at the beginning of academic point.
I can't write that fast.
Hmm?
I can't write that fast. Okay. Oh, okay.
You got it, if you got it, you can do that. And I can email it to you. Okay? Y'all in agreement with that? Okay? Let's see.
I've got 1005.4, the first, there's nothing, I made no substantive changes, but the wording in the first two sentences is just difficult. I suggested, gave to you, Adrian, just rework. I think, simplify it.
Okay.
They've got such things as landowner, who is responsible charge of the property whereon this, you know, it's
Okay.
just cleans that up.
Okay? Amazing that a lawyer would propose such a thing. Okay, at the end, I proposed on the paper I passed it out, adding a new section, 105.5, called campus identification and directive banners. Richard, you don't have this, but this is something that you and I have discussed. This has to do with campus, college campus banners. And just so you hear it, I'll read it. Banners identifying portions of the Montreat College campus and buildings or locales thereon may be installed on utility poles and other structures on the campus. The location, size, and duration of such banners must be approved by the zoning administrator in his or her reasonable discretion and shall be subject to the following. A, the owner of the pole or structure must have consented to the placement of the banner thereon. B, the maximum banner size is 28.5 inches in width by 6 feet in length. C, the bottom of the banner must be no lower than 11 feet above the ground surface. And D, if a pole is located within 3 feet of the back of the street curb, the banner must not be installed on the roadside of the pole. This came from the college, so this is acceptable.
Is this some of what you said, somewhere, basically?
Yes, he's got more specific language on that. Very happy.
Y'all okay approving that?
Yes.
I'm seeing everybody. Okay. Richard, I'll email you a copy of this as soon as I have a moment.
Thank you.
I suggest still, there's another substantive change, perhaps a new section, 1005.6. Should we not consider expressly permitting wayfaring signs on private property? We permit wayfaring signs on public property, public wayfaring signs, but we don't specifically provide for wayfaring signs on private property. For example, if the conference center wanted to put wayfaring signs along its trails. In fact, a blaze is technically a wayfaring sign. It just seems to me that we ought to permit that type of thing. That'd go to the conference center sign on the public right of way that you were talking about earlier, but it's the same sort of concept.
Would you take the hand and draft it?
Yes, I will.
So is that okay with everybody? And that does fall within that wayfaring plan.
Yes.
And we're going to ask the council to revisit that. That's right. As part of it, but that's what we do. Okay. All right, so that would be a 105.6. Okay. I think that's it for the signage, except we do need to check on the MRA signs today. Anything else on signs?
There's one, got something, 606.1. 106 deal with non-conforming signs. I'll struggle a little bit of this. And this says no person shall erect, okay? And That's just saying you can erect a sign, you can't erect a non-conforming sign. First. So, it gets in 106.1, it talks about maintenance of non-conforming signs. When I first read it, wait a minute, you can erect one, how can it be maintained? But I think this 106.1 and the subsequent sections are dealing with non-conforming signs that are non-conforming, they're existing as of the adoption of the ordinance, and therefore they became non-conforming.
As
They
a,
were
so,
grandfathered.
right. So if you said there, no person shall hereafter erect any sign.
Well, that would clarify that, but I was suggesting that maybe we need to have something in 106.1, something to say, all signs which are non-conforming and existing as of the date of adoption of this ordinance.
Okay, would you
You see,
just
we're
allow
talking about
that?
two different things. We're talking about, number one, we're saying you can't erect a sign in violation of ordinance, period. Then we're saying all non-conforming signs, I think we just need to clarify all non-conforming signs which are made non-conforming by the adoption of this ordinance, they're already existing. And then we're going into all these details about they can be maintained, et cetera, but it can't be enlarged, it can't be moved, get knocked down and be rebuilt just like they were, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just saying, we need to clarify the difference between us.
That's what non-conforming means, is they're already there. So you might just want to take out that first sentence in the first section. And because,
Or maybe just, yeah, that's possible too. I just think I'd like to have some clarification to say a non-conforming sign that existed at the time of the existence of this ordinance may continue to be maintained and just to clarify what we're talking about when we say non-conforming.
Can you propose some?
Am I making sense?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It is implied, I agree with Adrian there, but I think it's better to make it express as well.
Can you write something up? You get it? Sure.
And it does sort of touch on that in the removal of the non-conforming signs, because it states that 5 years after the big updates, that's already down there.
Yeah.
But
That's right.
putting it up front would not be a bad idea to that effect.
I think it's implied, which is when I first read it, because it says you can't build a non-conforming sign, and it starts talking about you can maintain it, and so forth, like, hey, good for it. You maintain it,
Yeah, I agree.
just to kind of clarify. Yeah, I'll be glad.
Adrian and I talked about 106.3, and I think it doesn't make sense the way we got it. Relocation of non-conforming signs. A non-conforming sign may be relocated on the same premises for which is located if the relocation brings the sign in conformity. And then I guess we need a 106.4. And that would be removal of non-conforming signs. Any non-conforming sign existing car wash shall be allowed 5 years to be removed. Is that okay with y'all?
So you can run.
That becomes 106.4.
How is the 5 years, when does the clock start ticking? Any non-conforming sign existing effective date? Okay.
So when this is signed, the effective date.
Right.
Okay, anything else on signs? With our comments and subject to final view, we've got some additions to make. We'd like to move this so far. As the adoptions. Move from second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Okay, yes, thank you. You there? Let's see. Let's move to development. And I think Adrian sent a draft, and Mason has a draft. I'm looking at my draft. Why don't we, Mason, this is where I wanted you to sort of take the lead on this and go through, when you ask the questions and then stop for yours, or just note them quickly on the grammatical stuff.
Okay,
Mind?
no, I'll go through it. I had the first page, I had only one comment, this is throughout, and we're now capitalizing all our terms for lot, particular is used 1,000 times in this ordinance, it's not capitalized.
Excuse me, can I stop you a minute? I don't know where we are. I've got the 2 packets I printed out.
It's in the main packet. You can find it on the website.
Article Roman numeral 6, development.
It's the one attached to the agenda.
Okay, I didn't print out the agenda, I printed out.
If you go to townofmontreat.org, there's a link.
Or your email.
Or yeah, it was emailed.
And I was grateful for Stuart to be here this morning because I think they really had to rush this. And we had looked at this a long time ago. And I know some of our memories, I know mine are a little cloudy, and Dan expressed that to me too. And Dan's sent some stuff out.
I think some of this, y'all looked at before I started.
That they did.
I think that's part of the problem. It was lost in translation a little bit. So
Okay, well, Mason, would you lead us?
Okay.
There's a lot of lots.
There's a lot of lots.
Dan, will you type in where you're
600, we're at 600.
Six, I got the first page.
I got it, I'm good.
601 and 602. Second page finishes up 602. And goes through accessory buildings, that's 606. Again, capitalization, I'm sorry, way, but just to let staff know, accessory buildings is a defined term, so everywhere we use it, both accessory and or building should be capitalized. Anna, you got anything on page 2? Does anybody have anything on page 2?
I don't have to move paragraphs.
This is under
I've
development.
got something to get at. Let's see.
Okay,
Street,
go ahead, Wade.
the street or platted roadway providing access to proposed development.
Where are you?
60, this is the red part, 602. Every lot must have access to the street.
Okay,
Is that where we are? Is there anything?
we can be there. That's 602.
602.
Bottom of page 1, it starts at the bottom of page 1.
Right. So the existing language has generally that you have to have access to the street. And where it says, for any lot that is not above the public street, or in case of ETJ, for any lot that is not above a public street or platted roadway, no building, structure, or use of land shall be established in such lot, unless it has a legal easement connecting such lot with the public street. That shouldn't be a problem because it's right of ways. Right? It's not an easement.
No, an easement, right away is a public interest. It could be an easement, it could also be fee title. I think what is here is it must be an easement from the owner of the, over which you're going. In other words, if you're between your lot line and the right of way, you gotta get over that.
Right.
You need an easement.
And, but where, just before it goes to 603, if the street or platted roadway provided access to proposed development does not meet the town street standards for public streets, the developer shall make the necessary improvements to bring the street or road up to town standards. And so I was told to get to a lot, I would have to build a 16-foot road. And it would have to meet town street standards. That was like 98% compaction. It was, I'd have to go to road like you would have to everywhere else in town. I could not just have a driveway for 100 feet. It's an open right of way, but it's right of way. My lot sits there, and there's no access to it. So
I think what this is talking about is to a proposed development.
Yeah, that's not the way I read the street.
Okay.
It's the public street, not a drive.
but in the order for the existing people have built private driveways, that causes
will no longer be allowed. That language is in the existing ordinance. And
This wouldn't prohibit that. This is relating to a development, not a private drive.
Or the public street.
This is a lot where you're building a home. This would be where you're putting a new development in.
That's
Absolutely.
totally appropriate there.
Yeah.
It was, former town administrator, when I had to do it. And, the zoning administrator said, I'm not gonna make it do that. This is not reasonable.
I don't read that the way that former town administrator.
Good.
Yeah, this is referring to the public streets and platted roadways and development. It doesn't refer to the private easement. Right? If you have a lot way back, you still have to have a private easement. You just have to get that public road. You have legal access.
If we said if the public street, would that clear that up for private as well? I guess street's probably defined.
It's defined, I think.
Yeah, okay. All right, proceed next.
All right, we're down to 606.
I had it.
So starts on the bottom, towards the bottom of page 2. Dan, what have you got?
606.13. Section 3, second line, where it says, it's such a good volume, 600 square feet, including entrance and or outside coverage and or CD. Including and exceed.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, the word exceed in the second line, 606.1, subsection 3.
Yeah.
The word exceed should be exceeding.
Exceeding, you see that, Avery,
Mm-hmm.
Stuart? Okay.
Section 4, right underneath that, it references, can be found in the very end, section 6.
Can I just say that Dan, I think that and or exceeding should really be just or exceeding. It shouldn't be and or exceeding.
Yeah, you may be right. Yeah, saying if it's more than 600 feet or more than 10 feet.
Yeah.
Or, so it'd be an or.
Yeah. That would be or, not in, second one. Okay.
Right below that, section 4, the very last two words at first, is section 612.2. And again, Adrian, y'all may catch all this, but that is not the correct reference. I think it should be 606.2 and the numbering.
Yeah, that's why it's highlighted.
I figured that again. I need all the help I can get, and I appreciate it. We don't point things out to 15 times, so you might not get.
I want to compliment everybody for being persistent on this, because it is tedious.
606.2.
Okay.
Garages in front yard. First letter A should be capitalized since we believe that the.
Where are you looking at?
Right in the very beginning. 606.2, garages in front yard.
A residential property.
First, A residential property owner. The A should be capitalized.
Okay.
Sorry. In subsection 4 of that same section, says the garage door shall be kept, look, well, go back up to 3 first, so they will. In that subsection 3, it says the garage must be enclosed by an operable garage door to be maintained in good working order. And then we added comma excluding carports.
The reason we did that, and I went back and looked, garage includes specifically.
And I'm okay with that. I'm just saying I don't think it's needed in 4 because obviously you wouldn't have garage doors on a carport. We just excluded that definition. But it doesn't hurt anything going to leave it both ways. I mean, the problem in 4, I don't think you need to have excluding carports.
All right, well, compromise. So you want to delete it in 4 and leave it in 3?
Yes. So I definitely think it needs to be in 3. I'm just saying I don't think you need it.
Can we talk about number 2 as well?
Yeah, I'll talk about 2.
Adrian, you want to talk about that?
Well, that was actually my comment. I don't know if Avery and I talked about this.
No, I know what you're, go ahead.
But I'm not sure this is legal. We don't have any, there's not a historic district here in town, right? And there's no,
In about, was it 2014-ish?
yeah,
North Carolina General Assembly changed the law to say regulations allowed by municipalities had to be based on the building code. So we can't regulate aesthetics. So I think that's kind of what I was thinking about this section.
What's your feeling? Should we take that out?
Probably, yeah. I don't challenge, but I think good. I hear what you're saying.
But this is, let's put this in context. This is a garage in the front yard that an owner is applying for a special use permit. This is not any garage, okay? This is a garage right by the street that's going to affect the appearance and character of the neighborhood. So I'm going to agree with Dan. I think we've got an interest in preserving the general character of the neighborhood and to make sure we don't have a garage right up front that's not consistent with the quality and appearance of the principal residence. I would just not limit it to new. I would make it, whether the principal residence is new or old, seems to blend with it. It should blend with it, or at least be consistent. But
What does that mean, though? I mean, we can't regulate the kind of materials used. We can't make them use brick instead of.
I wrote that. I wrote that 18 years ago, how many years ago, it would be covered by, you get a special use permit. And so we got to meet the conditions of the board that we've done before. And so the idea was you didn't want to junk it. There was some junk in the front yard. And so that was one way of putting that. But we would be relying on the zoning administrator making articles asking for special permit to make sure it wasn't going to be offensive.
But even with a special use permit, can we say it has to be brick?
oh boy. This would be a nice case. I assume, you guys can,
Well, if,
down litigate pro bono.
well, if we prefer it, if our general gut is that we would like to keep it, then let somebody litigate.
That's what I said.
I guarantee you that town can afford a lawsuit a lot better than the average person putting in a garage. And that's terrible for a lawyer to say that, but it's just the truth, the way the world works. I think if we're going to give somebody permission to put a garage right by the street, we don't have to do it. We can take this out. I think we get more screams about that. What we're doing is creating special circumstances where we're going to allow somebody to put a garage in the front yard setback. That's right. Not just the front yard setback. Okay, it's not just in the front yard, it's in the setback. It's right by the road. And I think this is appropriate, and I think it's appropriate for the garage, whether the principal residence is new or old. If they're getting permission to do that, they ought to satisfy the town that they're going to preserve the character of the overall lot on which they're building the garage.
I'm going to throw my calendar.
It might in fact help the builder get some sort of guidance on how to design it.
I'm going to throw my calendar. This date was the first day something I did 18 years ago. This town's been firm, probably.
So I'm hearing that as a plea for leaving it in with the modification to delete the words when the principal residence is there. Yes. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor? Sorry.
No interruption.
If you get challenged, let me know.
You cannot be the expert witness to the other side. Okay.
Anything else?
On this section?
Yep.
I know my line of work, a lot of times they ask you to add trees, add this, add that to try to buffer whatever it is. Do we need to spell that out in here, or is that implied and understood that it's a special use? They can ask of you certain things to get it approved.
It's gonna automatically happen. You've notified all the neighbors, you're going in for approval for something unusual, and, folks are gonna look at it. The neighbors will look at it and be required to do whatever was agreed to in that decision to make that exception.
All right. All right. Next
So,
section.
yeah, Bill, that's sort of covered, in two, it's sort of backwards covered, excuse me, 606.2, subparagraph 1. The zoning administrator determines that this will reduce damage to the natural topography, trees and natural green space, so I think sort of damage it, it's going exactly the opposite.
Yeah. Okay. It raises the whole
Y'all
issue.
feel okay.
I think that's right. Anything else on 606.2? 6.603, any comments?
Yes, again, that reference to 612.1, but it's still flash in yellow. So this is current norm, maybe enumeration may change.
I've got a comment. We say portable storage containers should be used for storage incidental to the principal use of the same lot. Storage trailers shall not be used for retail sales or other principal use. My question, and I raise it, should we, my inclination is these large storage containers, and I point out that the size of them is quite permitted size, even for residential uses, quite large. It seems to me their normal use is for restricted situations. So you've got construction, remodeling, somebody moving in, somebody moving out. In Florida, we see them a lot in hurricanes. It's an unusual situation. And then this just says it's for anything, and you can use it forever. And I don't think that's consistent with what I think we should limit it, particularly in a residential area, instead of just incidental use of a lot. I think we should restrict it to construction, remodeling, disasters, moving in or out, and similar events on a temporary basis.
Are y'all happy with that?
I agree.
I agree with that. You don't want to put these pods on.
The size, the permitted size is huge. In a residential, it's 10 feet in width and, no, let's see, really big. In residential, 8 feet by 24 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
Like years old to be.
Yeah, that's a.
So let me, Mason includes in this little blip to change it to something like, let me find it.
This would be in subsection 2.
Yes, and he says it should be limited to construction, moving in and out, acts of God, or acts of God. Is that okay?
And in such cases, the fact of the matter, it probably would be right.
In most cases, it is going to be in writing. You're exactly right.
This is going to prohibit.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Is that a time limitation?
It says in paragraph 3, no more than 180 days
Okay, that's
for
right.
12-month period. Okay, is there everybody agreement on making that change, the concept of it? Okay,
One quick technical thing in that 606.3, right where we are, subsection 2. Mason's read it, calls that portable storage containers, and then second line says storage trailers, should put trailer to container. It's just, we just threw in trailer all of a sudden.
oh yeah, the second
So the
sentence.
second sentence is storage containers.
change trailers to containers. Okay?
Better portable storage.
Can we
That's
confirm,
true.
can we confirm whether or not we're gonna allow them in the right of way? First sentence.
By definition, the city would have to give its approval for it to be in the right.
Well, it shouldn't be
It would be
prohibited.
a trespass.
We're saying it shall not.
But it says it shall not be in the right of way now.
We could add a private express permission.
Now, what about number one?
You could just add it in without the express condition of the town.
I think that's the way to do it, because like down on Texas Road when they were building those parks.
Right.
We all happy with that?
Yeah, and I think we might just add without question, which town, which permission may be conditioned on the execution of agreement acceptable to the town attorney, providing for indemnification, insurance, and all that other stuff.
You want to add that?
Sure.
Oh, this is Stuart, I'm sorry. You got that, Stuart?
I got without express permission of the town.
Which permission may be conditioned upon the execution of agreement between the town and such a
Everybody okay with that? Okay. Continue.
Okay, anything else on portable storage containers? Next is reasonable accommodation, 606.4.
I had 612, reference 612.1, it should be 606.1. And Stuart has suggested an alternative provision or addition or whatever. I personally like the original a little better, I think, just going my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, that was an attempt at just a little more flexibility, but again, it would take the place of the highlighted. The one thing I know, in talking to Adrian, there was a little bit of concern about having folks have to provide the documentation there in number 4. Because, associated with a handicap ramp or something like that. It's just been my experience that those kind of things have been permitted by right, just so you don't get into it could be an unpleasant situation sometimes.
So strike 4.
Well, that was one of the concerns.
Yeah, you don't want to,
And somebody
asking someone their documents.
right.
I don't have a problem deleting.
Okay, everybody wants to delete that, delete number 4.
Us, the discretion previously, but I agree.
You agree?
Yeah.
Is that anything?
You okay with that, Ed?
Yeah, I like it.
Now, that supports the.
So we're going to ignore the possible replacement language.
There's some parts of that I like, I just overall, I think I prefer the first version.
We've got, this, also encroachments permitted in large setbacks. Any comments to that language? I've got a couple of comments.
I thought that was what he was suggesting.
That's what he's suggesting, just encroachments, okay.
I thought it was.
How about easement encroachments? Is that the same?
I'm not sure what that is. Both docs, and I've lost interest.
I'm assuming easement encroachments is also just not part of what we're going to be putting in this. Okay. All right, anything, starting below that, we've got 605 corner lots.
Enumeration's gonna change up to 607.
So Stuart, the reasonable accommodation replacement language was the encroachments into the setbacks language? Because that's two different things to me.
Sorry.
I would agree with which is why I raised it, so.
So you have the encroachments into the required setbacks that includes play equipment and HVAC equipment and handicap ramps, et cetera. Is that what you were suggesting to replace the reasonable accommodation language with? The section above it?
No, I would say that the whole section would replace the whole section. But you could cherry pick if you wanted to. I mean, it's just a different way to go about it. I wasn't really suggesting that. It's a little more flexible than the way it is now.
What do you mean by whole section?
Everything highlighted in yellow would go away and everything in red would take its place.
Everything highlighted in yellow under a reasonable accommodation.
Yes.
But is that the same thing? Because we're talking about a reasonable
It's
accommodation.
broader, but he was going to cover the reasonable accommodation language with much broader provisions. That's what I meant. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do y'all prefer?
I think we're taking up highlighted yellow language. I think
That's what I'm, y'all happy with that? Just to be clear. All right. With the removal of 4. We're removing 4.
Yeah, you said we leave it for.
And all the red, we're not incorporating any of the red.
that's right.
Okay, well, the red, like in number 1, that stays in, but not the red
Oh,
paragraph.
yeah, I'm talking about the whole red paragraph.
The red under supplementary dimensional requirements, encroachments.
All of it.
Down to 605.
So we got 605 corner lots. Any comments?
The numbering is wrong, it should be 607 and 8, 9, 10.
Yeah. Double frontage lots.
Going back to the corner lots, real quickly, basically, you get to choose which side of that corner lot, based upon where you're gonna set the facing of the house. Is that what I'm reading in here? And then the other side can be up to half the,
Well, if there's doubt, the zoning administrator determines.
okay.
And I think-
And that part I didn't understand. But my question, I have a corner lot. It's kind of narrow at the base. It sort of goes this way. I could still build on it, but I'd have to build way further up than I may want to. I have to maybe combine some, one of my lots so it works a little better. But if I just take the front part, as the road runs in front of it, typically you'd have a 30-foot setback, but then the side, when the road comes and cuts up, it would be less. Is that correct? Just from my understanding. I mean, according to
On the side.
yes. So there's not the double jeopardy of 30-foot setback on both sides.
Right.
Yeah, you got, it's the
That's what I
side.
understand. Okay. Because it is particular to my lot, the ones that is sort of pie shaped. So if you keep 30 feet on this side, I truly can't build so much further up there. Won't fit anyone else without modification.
Anything else on that?
No, just wanted to make sure I understood what you're saying there.
Okay, Mason?
Double frontage lots, any comment? Special front yard requirements.
This is one I talked to Bill, I sent something, I think, to Bill and maybe Stuart yesterday. This is something dealt with, according to my people's mind and recollection, that Bill thinks to support me at some length, and I drafted language for it back in probably last fall, and I had to, yes, I still got copies of it right here.
Where are you reading on 615?
We're at 607 on the
607.
And it was
Starting at the bottom of page 5.
Yeah, and I mean, I can.
I have it. It's supposed to be in there.
Yeah,
it's lost in translation.
Yeah,
So
Andrew and I talked to Wayne, and I think I found some minutes where we approved it.
That's what I
It
was-
was numbered 615.
That's what I meant. That's
It
what
was
I
completely
meant.
rewritten because I have a very personal interest, you know, they remember that's exactly what I got involved in. And David Curry interpreted one way, I did another, and we ended up having a total
When I
vampire.
read this, I thought, gee,
Yeah,
this is not the way we thought we had it, so.
So Dan is
And I could
providing,
not find my actual digital copy, I mean, a hard copy, and I could not find it.
well, and we can find that we did vote on that and incorporate that. So Adrian, will you?
I've got it. Yeah.
She's got it.
And then 616 was a section back then on nonconformities that Adrian and I, we also worked on, I think, at the exact same time, with my archives were stapled right together, where I drafted all this new language. And I can't find that nonconformities anywhere now.
I've got that too.
Pardon?
I have that too.
You do? I don't know where it got placed.
I think you got to place it in a new section.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But that is in,
Somewhere.
It's in a different part of the ordinance.
Yeah.
It'll be there when we put it all together.
Okay.
you happy with that, Dan?
Pardon?
Okay with that?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that it brought by the side somewhere, because it's gonna write next time discussing it.
All right. Moving down, we got some deleted sections that have been moved. Nuisances and hazards in building sites. We've got 609 manufactured homes. I just point out that manufactured homes is now a defined term.
You know, help me understand, this is just, we find them at great length in the definition section, and I guess these definitions here track that. I haven't taken time to put them side by side and make sure we're all consistent. But you're right, there are defined terms, all the
Yeah.
classes and everything else, and then we've got all these.
And the difference between a class A and class B is basically the ratio of width to length of the unit.
It's a single wide, double wide.
Yeah, the B is one is 3 to 4, one's 3 to, I don't know, I'm wrong, but it's one's longer or narrower than B is.
But it has to do with the roof slope, lots of things, I think. But I guess my question is, without taking the time to compare all of this to definitions that we spent some time on and prove, are these consistent? Because there's a lot of repetition, it appears to me. It should be consistent.
Stuart, can we make this more directive and leave out all the definitional stuff?
Since we've already defined it.
Since it is defined.
Yeah, probably eliminate some of this.
Not somebody needs to take the time to go word by word, make sure they're consistent.
Stuart, will you take a look at that in the next draft?
Yeah.
Somewhat related to during development, and I know that a lot of the Laurel Ridge and those kind of places have restrictions on motorhomes. We need to specifically spell out anything on motorhomes during development.
We have restrictions on that.
Uh,
I think we have restrictions on that.
I think so too, but I'm
Down here
But
somewhere.
just for development. Someone was developing,
Under
and
six,
they parked their motorhome there for 12 months.
we have a travel trade, yeah, 615, I think.
Okay,
Bill, in 60941, it says, this class of manufactured homes shall be allowed as a use right or ones and then 609 class B shall be allowed as a special use. We are ones and
That's already covered in another section of
The travel trailer thing?
the manufactured
No, it's
homes.
all that.
Manufactured homes.
But you're talking about something temporary living.
Wait, we don't have two different things here.
Yes.
Building went back to manufactured homes.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's all right, let's go back to manufactured. Where are we at? Anybody got anything further on manufactured homes?
That's what
No, that would be a different section on for travel trailers.
In R1, it's use by right, which our use table tells us.
Right.
And in class B, it's use with special, it's a special use, which our use table tells us. I'm not sure why we've got these sections in here at all, but.
Yeah, I mean,
My note says I don't understand why they have this on. I don't understand.
Let's,
Maybe the appearance criteria is probably why we're addressing manufactured homes in the development section. So, has anybody got anything, comments on appearance criteria? Because that's probably not covered in the ordinance.
I actually do recall reading something about removing axles and putting the skirt around the bottom and pins and all that, so I think
All right.
it is somewhere else.
So we'll let Stuart look at it, see.
I think some of that is covered somewhere else too. And I can't see the chapter words right now.
All right, well, we'll let Stuart look at it and move on to regulations for cut and fill slopes.
Well, unless you want to.
It's fine, I saw it down there.
It's this. Okay.
All right, well, we'll get down to travel trailers. Cut and fill slopes.
I don't, is this something that's in the other sections?
well, that's why I highlighted this, because I was thinking, this goes back to the original ordinance. I'm thinking this kind of stuff now in Hillside and the flood ordinance. I don't really know if it needs to be here.
And I'm sorry, which section again, I forgot lost the policy.
679.
Again, understanding the hillside doesn't apply to everyone.
Yeah, that's true.
You may need it both places, because the hillside is not gonna apply to everyone. The drainage would apply to everyone, I think, but just need to look. Hillside is only gonna apply where you've got 40% grade.
Are these consistent with those other regulations? Like, for example, 611, cut and fill slopes shall not exceed a 1-to-1 cut and a 1-to-5. I don't understand.
I don't understand it either.
1-to-1, 45.
Well, no, but yeah, I don't understand the sentence. Why the parenthetical horizontal distance equals vertical? So it's 1-to-1 cut. A 1-to-1 cut.
Is it a 1-to-1 horizontal cut and a 1-to-1?
I don't know.
I don't know what it means either.
Yeah, it's if you cut the bank, cut it from that street. It's matched, you can't cut it back, and if you fill, it's a little shallow. The cut bank didn't stay with me 100 years, fill bank, it was just, again, so I have more room.
1-to-1 means one horizontal and one vertical.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it 45.
Yes.
Adrian, you understand that section? Can you voice it?
That's Wade can help me, but I'm not sure we need 612. That's definitely in this flood damage prevention ordinance.
Yeah, sure.
Or at least 611, should code administrator not be zoning administrator.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had a question, but code administrator is it should be zoning administration. Yeah.
That sentence just made no sense to me. I'm glad somebody else. 611, I don't know.
I would suggest someone try to translate the first sentence into something a little bit more intelligible to the average person.
Can you simplify that at all, Stuart?
Which one?
611.
Cut and fill.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, Wade could help you.
And interpret it, translate it for it.
We'll work on it.
In English.
It's Everybody that does a building deals with this all the time.
Okay, so you guys, Wade and Adrian, you're gonna take a look at the regional flood, language, the drainage language on the seven.
I would recommend-
Sort of
I would
all of
recommend-
that, and make sure, if it needs to be here, we'll leave it here.
I would recommend taking 612 out. It's definitely in the flood damage prevention ordinance.
Six will out.
To take it out completely or reference back to the other.
Just take it out.
Completely out.
Yeah.
You've got a whole flood here.
Okay, what about 613, same thing?
No, I don't. I think I can talk to Wade about that one too, but I would, let's leave it for now.
Is this requiring, is this requiring a 24-inch culvert underneath the driveway?
It is.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
A 24-inch culvert, it really should be, 14 inches maybe, max 12 inches.
Barry and I usually go look at it and make a decision,
Is this
based
where
on
other
each property.
Yeah, but but we're specifying 24 inches, and that's just, I can't imagine,
It's big.
I can't imagine a 24-inch culvert being
Mhm.
needed unless you are crossing a stream with a driveway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to at least say a culvert with such diameter as
But what if you look, does it have to, Dan said a culvert of sufficient capacity in the opinion
or something.
of the, I guess.
24 inches is just crazy.
Or-
Yeah, that's a 24-inch culvert.
Right.
Is it opinion of the public works? Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
A culvert with sufficient capacity in the judgment of the public works
That's what happens in practice.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
for other means of drainage acceptable to the public. Once again, it's the public works director. We could say pipe material capacity placement and method of installation. Capacity.
I have to say adequate means of drainage control, storm water runoff required for each driveway. Blah, 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 consultation required with public works director regarding the pipe, period, placement of that.
I like it. Y'all okay with that?
So we're saying that adequate means of drainage is required. Just delete the 24 pump. Altogether.
As determined by the public works.
Yes. And the zoning administrator too, put it in there.
Everybody happy with that for direction to Stuart? Like,
Yeah,
okay.
it's good.
Sedimentation control would remain as it is, right?
I think so, because hillside doesn't cover everything. But it needs to stay in.
This says these sections are now covered by the bill system.
The hillside doesn't cover every land disturbing activity.
So we're gonna leave it in 613.
Neither does stormwater or flood necessarily.
Agricultural uses. Anybody got any comments? It's parking and storage, of travel trailers, campers, and recreation.
There it is.
Any comments there? Approval for construction and rights of way. Driveway connections. Fences.
There's
there's an area for opportunity there.
What you got, right?
The erection of one of these 6-foot solid
Stockade.
that you see one on Monterey Road right before you get to the gate. This one up on the left side. Becoming really popular. I've seen them in the last 4 years built on Monterey Road and torn down within 2 years because they look clean the day they were finished. They don't have the first winter. And there's a little brouhaha 2 doors down from me between that neighbor and the neighbor on the other side, where they're putting in a 6-foot fence all the way from North Carolina Terrace, all the way to Virginia Road, 6 feet high, so that the owner of the property can turn their dogs out of their front door and not have to take them out to get to that entire site. If you look at that solid wall on Monterey Road, we don't have those in Monterey. I'm sure we don't want something like that. I think we had one, somebody needs some cars. So I would think that we might want to address the height of fences and the materials used to avoid solid fences. The neighbor to go down, and I'm saying it's not going to solid fences, it's going to be hardwired. But they were actually requesting to be able to put it in the right of way on both sides of the property. Which they can see now.
Which brings up another point. So the right of way on the North Carolina side is basically their front yard, but the house stops right on the property line because it was built, way back in the day. So she wanted to extend the fence into the right of way, but from our the way I read it and the way I see it, if we allow construction in the right of way, there has to be arguably a public purpose for that, like a parking space or a retaining wall for drainage or whatever. So a fence to me doesn't meet that requirement. But when I was talking to the town attorney about it, she brought up that I need to bring up to you guys what you would think if we should allow temporary structures in the right of way, if that should be part of what our right of way agreements contain, or should we just keep it public purpose, parking space, retaining wall? So.
Temporary structure.
That was something the property owner had come back with, like panels that stake into the ground that can just be pulled back up. And if we could allow that, we don't have language to allow temporary structures, so.
But it would be a temporary structure in the sense that it was easily removable, but it would be there on a permanent basis.
Right.
So it's a temporary
Fence.
That's all.
Like removing that fence, you still have whatever's holding. I mean, whether you do a fence traditionally or you do a hold.
Well, I wouldn't ever allow the fence traditionally. We would have to define it. And that's the only way we could allow something like that. So the attorneys.
What I'm saying, you put a hole in the ground, you put a holder for a fence.
Right.
You go like that, you pull the fence out, it's still permanent because that hole is still in the ground.
I'm not saying I agree one way or the other. I just said I'd bring it up and see what you guys think.
Well, hard to put a fence in that's going to be sturdy at all without pouring concrete. At least in this design.
Well, and if you think about not just fences, but any temporary structures, should we allow temporary structures through the agreement we have in the right of way? That's the question.
I don't think we should.
I don't think so either.
And the agreement we have states that should the town determine, we have to remove it. Even the permit, we have to remove it at our expense.
Yeah. And the only other thing I see us leaving in the right of way are signs or house numbers that serve a public purpose for emergency and other things. So I don't.
That's fine. I just wanted to bring it up.
was thinking even on that temporary construction signs. You might go out, and that's really what I was thinking, was temporary, the temporary materials that might be permanently there.
So, just so I understand the situation, you're saying this particular situation, what, if I rode down that road right now and I look, it looks like her front yard,
But it's the right of
but
way.
it's not her front yard.
Right.
It's technically the right of way. And she's going to put up whatever kind of fence, I mean, any kind of fence is technically removable. Even if it's brick wall,
Yeah, true.
anything removable, it's temporary, permanent, you can make that all day long. But, so she's asked for permission to put up something she's calling temporary.
Yeah, because
Maybe they may have stakes in the ground and they have kind of a little concrete quarter around it or whatever, but I guess I'm trying to be fair here. I mean, who is it hurting if she put up a little fence and if the town needed that, put that up utilities through the underground utilities, but I mean, all they do is put a fence, throw it over the side, or she'd be forced to remove it if she has some agreement. I mean, I see both
I think
sides.
what's objectionable though is if someone wanted to put up an opaque fence along the front of their house, that's similar to this one on Montreat Road.
Well, I agree, I think I'll outlaw those.
That's what I think she's asking to do though.
Well, I thought she's doing like a little chicken wire fence or. a chicken
yes,
fence.
it's wooden posts.
It's a substantial structure.
And that's what she's
100
requesting.
feet.
I thought you
100
meant
feet.
to
It's 6 feet tall. And
It's not a brick wall, but it's gonna have cement. Yeah. I mean, it's not solid. It's chicken wire type,
Chicken wire?
something like that.
There goes the neighborhood.
cow fence.
Maybe hog wire, but not chicken.
But it's not solid.
See,
It's a see-through fence.
Yeah.
Well, could they ask, could they apply for a special use permit? Obtained from the zoning adjustment board?
I don't know.
I mean, we don't have restricted covenants that, there's nothing outlawing, if this were her front yard and not the right of way, if it was somebody else's house, she could do it, right?
Right.
So it's not an aesthetics issue, whether it's chicken wire, hog wire, or stockade fence, or whatever.
Right.
Now, she could do it, right?
Well, we've had a lot of conversation about a 30-foot setback. Here, the 0 setback, and you have to put something.
Well, I'm not suggesting that, I'm debating it, I'm discussing, I'm still working through it in my head. It's, I have no problem with that one.
Does this come up very often?
Mm-mm.
Could you get some fence, Adrian or Stuart, some sample fence regulation language that you've got seen in other municipalities that address this?
Yeah, Biltmore Forest just updated theirs, and it's probably more. It's pretty extensive, but I can pass it along to you and let you look at it. They don't allow fence in the setback. It has to be certain materials, on and on. So certain height.
Well, we
So-
can always slow it down. I mean,
Right.
But we've got really nothing to work with here.
Well, is there also maybe some of this covered under discussions where your neighbors have some say in it? There was language that we had earlier for, placement of the house and other things, you would notify the residents or something, nearby and see if there's agreement or disagreement on how it should be done.
I think you.
Theoretically, could the town council, by special ordinance, approve something, if somebody wanted to go to them, could the town council approve that? They could. I'm just trying to think, it sounds so rare that I'm not sure we have to deal with it.
Do you, Adrian, do you get your bids permit here? No. So, I mean, some places do and some don't.
We don't have any
Yeah.
requirements, so I don't
Like
know what.
Biltmore Forest does.
Right.
Yeah, like some places, some municipalities issue a fence permit, but other, a lot don't. I mean, it's,
I'm in favor of taking that, at least giving it a look over.
Yeah, I sometimes got two issues here. One is a right of way issue, which I'm perfectly
Right.
fine with saying you can't build anything the right of way. It seems the second issue we raised is fencing in general. And I don't know how can we control it You usually see in the restricted covenants for neighborhoods and so forth, about the size fence, where it can be located, not in front of the house and all that kind of stuff. But can a town regulate that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think we ought to discuss that at some point, because I share a concern about a 6-foot solid wood fence running around somebody's front yard, down the side of your yard, whatever.
I'll send you guys a copy of that, and Stuart might have some other examples too. We'll send you some stuff before the next meeting that you can kind of.
Yeah, I'm sure a good one for us is
Typically, most places will not have, allow fencing towards the front of the house.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
In communities or subdivisions, they'll have them set back to at least the front of the house, or maybe halfway along the axis. I see this. Those places.
You gotta remember too, that Montreat has all sorts of things in it, going back to 1897. And so it's different from the very planned communities that have a lot of restrictions on fences and things. So
The
there's a lot
historic districts are really defined fences, right? You gotta have, a certain height in the front, you have a certain height in the back. X number of inches between the slabs, the pillars and stuff. You really get into it.
Protected actually by our slogan. Now, I mean, not many people take on fences because it's so difficult. You know,
Okay, well, if y'all get some language to us, we'll consider it. Are we agreed though that we don't think it should go out in the right of way? We're not reached that.
Yes.
Like, it should not be in the right of way.
Right. 6, regulation for special use permits, starting at the bottom of 11.
Yeah, this was the accessory dwelling units. We went over this like, I don't know, 3-4 times.
Is this, this is, we've been over this language. haven't we?
Yeah,
I thought so.
we came up with this, and so this is where it will be. So for an accessory dwelling unit, you're looking at table permitted uses, see the S, and then you gotta come back here to get the standards.
We all recall it that way, that's the way, well,
Okay.
Mason had a comment.
I have a comment about some sort of architectural compatibility, but maybe that's going to be covered by the fact that they've got to give a special use permit. But 9, ADU is not a defined term down there. You need to spell that out.
Unless you finish that. The home occupation, I know we discussed this, and I don't have a problem with one non-resident employee. I just wonder if we shouldn't leave the language that's deleted and say, except that one non-resident employee network. I don't know, it's necessary, just all.
I think we talked about this, and then we have the definition, but this is where we put it. And,
I sort of like Dan's approach to that.
I'm just suggesting that the language sentence read, that number 1 on home occupation, that would read, no person other than member of the family residing on premise shall engage in such an occupation, comma, except that no more than one non-resident employee may work in the home occupation.
that's okay. So that means you couldn't have both the secretary and the bookkeeper. Of course, the bookkeeper's giving professional advice. I mean, they're not working there, it's on their occupation. Okay.
number 7, verse number 9, 1 parking space in addition to the principal dwelling. ADU shall,
Where are you?
He's not back above, I'm sorry.
and then in standards, number 7, 1 parking space, standards number 9, no more than 4 persons. So should we say parking spaces as needed per square footage as opposed to say only 1 parking space? Because now I would think a house with 4 persons would have 2 cars, and we've left off spot for a car.
I think what this is saying, Bill, and I may be reading it wrong, is that it's a development requirement for an accessory dwelling that you've got to have one space in addition to the spaces that are already required for the principal structure. So that if your principal structure required 3 spaces, let's say it was 29,999 square feet, you put an accessory dwelling on there, you've got to go to 4 spaces. But I think, Stuart, is that right?
Yeah.
That's what we're at.
And then if you park in the principal residence, I'm just making sure that we don't create a parking problem.
Yeah, and they'll have to have 4 parking places on site unless they get permission to create parking in the right of way.
Well, suppose they put, I think this is a good point, because should they not be subject to the same requirements when you go get, we started at 2,500 square feet, and then you get to go another 1,000, any portion of the next 1,000 feet. So if the accessory dwelling unit together with the principal dwelling unit, it causes the square footage to require another parking space.
Is there a limit on the size of accessory dwelling?
Yes. Like 600 feet or something? It's in the ordinance.
I thought it was, but I didn't see that here.
I mean, just especially if it's being built to the development stage, we can say,
Large accessory dwelling.
you know, throw another parking space.
Well, we could say that the accessory dwelling, let's say that there would be 1 parking space for each 1,000 square feet or portion thereof.
That's consistent.
Consistent with their other language.
Yeah, that 500.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, the 500. Stick that same language in here. That would make it consistent.
Adrian, or Stuart, you got that?
No, please say that again.
Going back to where we just labored over that parking, and it's,
It'd be 1 parking space for each 1,000 square feet or portion thereof over 500 square feet. That's the way.
Just like you did in the park.
it's over in
Mirror the parking requirements.
it's in section 902 in the parking lot. It's 902. What will become A? 902A.
Second, just be revised to track that. Bill said to mirror that.
Y'all okay with that?
That makes sense. Good suggestion, Bill.
Suppose, just thinking out loud, suppose it doesn't bump it up to the next level. Should we still require at least 1 parking space? Regardless of square footage?
Yeah.
You got that, Stuart? Okay, good.
I think that's what the language says.
It does, but I think that's where you can say in addition to require.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking how you structure the line. Okay?
All right. Home occupation, we covered Dan's comment to subsection 1. Any other comments? I've got at the end of 4, just add the word setback, the word front yard.
Where's that?
The very end,
Oh, yeah.
the tail end, the last word, it says required front yard, I think it should read required front yard setback.
Are y'all, we won't vote on this until we see this again. We had so many changes to set up as well. Stuart, can you get this for us by next meeting?
Yeah, it'll probably be the end of the week.
That's okay, just gives us the weekend to look at it. And Adrian's gonna make the changes in the parking and signage, that's going. Y'all done a good job.
And I've got a draft for 1,526. Somebody else's draft. Dan, are you trying to get something?
I'm doing 106.1 about
Yeah.
this non-conforming.
If y'all get those, just do it. So we can incorporate them. Okay, anything else on this, Mason? No? Okay, thank you all. Let's waive, we're not gonna get into development, outside development, stormwater, now probably, we might get into it next week, but probably not. Stuart, when you prepare these this time, can you put it all in one big package so that we can begin to see the total framework? Part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4,
I
part 5.
don't know if I can get that done.
Okay. Because that would be helpful. That way we could see it all in context.
Yeah, I would need help with that. That's gonna require me to coordinate with our person at the office. Getting all that nomenclature right and all that kind of stuff.
I can help you with it too. So
That's, yeah.
Well, if we can, it'd be great if we could. We got enough. We've got a tentative conclusion on the following week, but we're probably not going to make that.
Yeah.
Or the 30th, we're probably not going to be finished. So, okay. Okay, Wade wanted to talk a little bit about the.
The new business, on the agenda, new business.
Yeah.
Last time, Bill mentioned in the hillside development, really complicated, and maybe we need to just pass that back to council. My perspective, hillside development, not easy, because that's just my area. So I prepared recommendations on hillside development. And it's just a single page I'll pass out. But a lot of things that happen on this steep slope. There seemed to be so much confusion with the map and so forth that an awful lot of stuff was put in place and it gets pretty onerous. So you saw all those formulas for determining steep slope. It was too complicated for me, so I bought a level that says what slope is. And what it just mode.
You already passed my technical capabilities.
All right, so this is inches per feet, and then that's degrees. So it seems like they were thinking in terms of degrees. And so this is obviously what we know is 45%. If we change it to slope, it's a percentage. So all these requirements start at 40%. So at 40%, 45 degrees by the way is 100%. So 40%, that's 60, 57, 50, 49, 43, 40%. This is 40% slope. This is where all of these requirements, if your lot is 40%, you are not allowed to use 60% of the lot. And you are required to have a geotech engineer certify all of your improvements. Okay, if that's the slope, that's not threatening. We're requiring a geotech engineer. So geotech engineer will determine if we shouldn't use this part of the slope. And so I have just, I had put it in to the book I gave us at the beginning of this a year ago. And so it just shows the slope, and it shows what happens when you take away 50 to 75% of the lot to use. And you really can't use your property. And so I just will leave that with you so you can take it, you look at the recommendations. One of them is you violate it, it's a $500 penalty, 30 days, or 30 days in jail. And then they added, each day that you remain in violation is another $500. It could be $30,000 in fines before you got bulldozer out there. At any rate, that's what you look at for the next time we get to that.
And that's on steep slope.
Yeah, the hillside ordinance, right? Obviously, hillside ordinance. And the reason it's so critical to me is what I was concerned about with our zoning ordinance is the things we've done that restricted people from using the property. College should not be able to come. The zoning ordinance we've gone through, and the things that are hurting folks were the two things that did in general ordinances. So the hillside developments in general ordinance. That way, you create additional weight of setback by taking away 50, 60, 70, 85, 75% of the property for even being used. So then on stormwater, this one is a copy for everybody too, and it's merely what I call a double setback. We have our regular setbacks, but in the general ordinances, stormwater, chapter K, we put a thing in there for intermittent streams. You must have a 30-foot setback from the top of the bank. Intermittent streams, I have this copy for everybody, and it's told we are full of streams. We don't have any lots left to develop. And so it really was something that would stop people from doing much of anything all over town. And so I had another one, and this is really simple. This is 6 lots in the ETJ. The green are setbacks. The blue is a 30-foot stream setback. This lot right here is owned by my wife, and the setbacks are 100%. These 4 lots are owned by MRA. They are available for people once we have water and sewer and whatnot. One of MRA's lots only has 16% of the lot that can be developed. The one beside it, 6% of the lot. The next one, 20% of the lot. So all of these are relatively flat lots with only 6% that you can build on. In other words, it gets close to a taking. So the state of North Carolina, Department of Natural Resources, to preserve our water quality and so forth, they put in these 30-foot setbacks from all sorts of streams. Inland streams is one of them, which we think of get to sometime. And so this is a letter from DNR to us about the lot that is 100% setback. So and here's a copy of the letter for you. It says, at this time, since you plan to construct a single-family dwelling, and likely your maximum disturbance will be under an acre, the state regulations regarding stormwater do not apply. Montreat took it, and then Buncombe County and Blackout did the same. Oh, let's make it for every lot. And so that's when it became sort of taken with the property. If it's an acre or more, as the state says, you've got room to move around the stream. You don't have to crowd it. If it's a quarter-acre lot, third-acre lot, it becomes a double setback and takes a lot. So I've got the copies and the zoning sections and so forth. And the reason I put it in the books a year ago is because I knew that's where we were getting in trouble. Remember, we were advised that we had bad reputation, people couldn't build here. Well, it's the general ordinance thing that was on neighbors. And so I got the references for you and whatnot. But I just wanted us to have that in advance when we sort of look at it. Because the solution is real simple. For a hillside, you can only take out the requirement that you can't build on 60% of the lot. 7%, because you're requiring a geotech engineer. That would determine if part of the lot shouldn't be used. And so I think it gets simple if we just look at it as what the effect is of what we need. So I've got those two things.
So you're saying there that we shouldn't have an absolute prohibition stated in the ordinance, we should rely on the professional. to make the decisions.
On the hillside, right?
That's my question.
Well, but again, I wasn't prepared, so I'm not studying. But as I recall, I had it built in it, a lot, a portion of that may be covered by, again, the stormwater stuff. But I had it in my head anyway, and it may not be on paper. Part of the impervious surface, that's what surface requirement. I don't know if they call it the ordinance, but it's what my limitations of the hillside ordinance are because of stormwater constraints, because you got that water moving down so quick on a steep slope. But we just need to study. It's just not sure.
That's all. See, that's already covered.
That may be covered in stormwater.
So
So
that's covered in stormwater. That's why we have to have
Just-
underground tanks and so forth. Where this comes from, let's don't even use 50 or 60% of the lot, is from developers who would come along and take a mountain and just try to do a Cheshire scale development. It's, you know, on a steep slope, you would denuding thing, roads were collapsing down at one of the western towns, you know, road collapsed, people killed and stuff like that. You cannot denude a mountainside. And that's why the mountain man could disturb, we put into limits. Moncrief, we've got a few lots of that. So when somebody's doing one, steep or otherwise, if it's otherwise, our stormwater we require to control it, capture it, release it over 40 hours. If it's steep, we're still required to do the same. But if it's 40%, which is not that steep, we're required to have a geotech engineer take our soil samples, where our foundations are, what's the stability of that foundation, and make sure that we don't have something like dust.
well, I agree. But with the geotech engineers, is checking is the stability of the structure as built on the surface, not the stormwater.
Correct.
That's right.
Wait, just a real quick question, just a quick question. Are you suggesting, like, why? It's 100% taking up there on the stream. I'm saying, I can understand what you're saying in your stream. This is just not water flowing through it all the time. Like when it rains or something. Are you suggesting though we should just kind of ignore that, not have any setbacks from those? And then don't you get into when you say intermittent stream, what's an intermittent stream? One person might be a real stream all the time.
State determines it. They're doing this.
So are you suggesting that we don't have any setbacks from those or less of the setback?
That we don't have the setbacks on lots less than an acre, just as the state did, because on the lots of our size, it causes a I don't think the MRA to have a lot reduced to 6% can be used.
So you're saying that we should ignore a setback for a intermittent stream? I'm just asking the question. I'm not sure. I understand.
On lots less than an acre.
Yes,
Not less than an acre.
On small lots.
this is more.
So you can build right over the top of that intermittent stream. In your west or whatever.
The existing laws that I understand are, there's a peculiarity. You said you build right over it. Actually, according to the state you could, you have to put it in a culvert. Culvert has to be engineered to be bigger than but Dave Curry was, when I was complaining about it, said, well, you can put it in the culvert and bury the culvert. Well, no, I'd love to have the stream still running through my life.
Well, an intermittent stream isn't something like Flat Creek. I'm just thinking about this house under construction. You're not talking about the same thing.
But there could be water running through it.
Yes, after when it rains,
So your house is there.
We just take a road trip up to your caboose up there, and you can show us. I've seen it multiple times, but
we need to get a
these guys might
social,
like it.
social distance caravan going
Yeah,
on.
there we go.
But it's, I've got so that you can look at it. it's hard to have a quick discussion.
I just have something to say about constructing in stream beds.
We have 175,000 acres of forest around us. We are doing a really good job of being good environmental folks. And to say that those of us who traded lots up right here on the trails, we traded lots and were requested to trade lots to come down to the little area that we are in. To then say, oh, but by the way, you're not going to be able to use the property. So we traded lots up on Brian Luke Trail. We were requested to do, to come down to the flat area. And this intermittent stream starts about 100 feet above our lot. And it goes underground back 200 feet past our lot. And in the case of a gully washer, it doesn't go underground, it goes all the way. But it's a matter of reasonable proportion. We architects can make any building fireproof. You just can't have any fabrics in it, and sofas, so forth. So it's all a reasoned balance between living or property rights or whatnot. And
Well, then the aesthetics and. Okay, well, y'all have heard, Wade, he's gonna, don't forget to get the 2 packets he's got. And we'll put those on the agenda. I still gotta work out in my mind the timing on the drainage and.
That's complicated for
That's what I see. So we might want to finish up with this and then recommend to the council that we're going to take that as a separate study. Okay, Richard, I see you're still on. Do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you all for all your hard work.
He said no questions.
Thank you for your patience. Thank you, Richard. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? And we're going to meet next week again at 10:30. Okay, and is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed. Thank you all for your patience.
Just 1 week.